Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner coming to you with the DeKalb County Library System, bringing you another jewelry making program. And this one I've centered on St. Patrick's Day because it's just around the corner. So I wanted to make something really very easy. I wanted to make this a project that maybe you can do with your family, and I wanted to make it really simple. We will be using wire, but it's going to be a very easy make. So we're going to make this cute little 4-leaf clover bracelet. The clover is going to be out of wire. We're going to embellish it with beads on the side, and we're going to make an embellished clasp. And it is very, very easy. It probably sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's really, really simple to make. And I just wanted to do that. Now, I'm using green because St. Patrick's green, and but you don't have to do that. I'm using these little green teardrop beads because I think they're pretty, and some rondelles and a little bit of chain and 20 gauge wire. That's all you need for this. Beads, chain, 20 gauge wire. That's it. Simplest thing in the world. So that's what we're going to make today. You're going to use your usual pliers, your round nose, chain nose or square nose pliers, cutters, 20 gauge wire. I made this one with gold. I think it's rose gold wire and chain. And we'll have some that are gold. We'll have some that are silver. I'm talking about the kits. So they're going to be different colors that you can use. Because I have one in rose gold with the green teardrops with the green embellishment, I thought I'd make this one with silver, and I would use the gold teardrops with the green, a little bit of green in there. Gotta have your green, St. Patrick's Day. That's just what I'm doing. You can do any colors you want. But anyway, let's get started because I really like this project. It's so simple, and I want to show you. I can't wait to show you how to do it. So let's get going. I think I forgot to mention that you also need a ruler. You do need a ruler so that you can measure your wire. So the first thing I want to do, it's like my voice is parentally congested or my throat is or whatever. First thing I want to do is measure out 4 inches of wire. Now, the amount of wire that you use depends on the size you want your clover leaf to be. I'm just using the very back of my round nose pliers. So that's as big as I need it to be. 4 inches is a little more than I need. So if you want to make yours bigger, I would suggest using more wire to accommodate the size. The 4 inches works for the size that I'm making. I'm going to show it to you down here too. Isn't that pretty? It's so easy. So easy to make. Okay, let's get going. So I have my 4 inches of 20 gauge wire, and what I'm going to do is take my wire and slide it to the very back of my pliers. This is easy for me to make the 4 loops the same size because I know I'm always going to the back of my pliers. So I go to the back. I don't want anything sticking out the back there of my pliers. Get over here, we can see a little more. And now then I'm going to rotate my pliers to create a closed loop. And I'm just going to open my pliers when I can't go any further, clamp down again, and keep rotating until the end of my wire meets the back of my wire. So that's what I have in the beginning. Then next I'm going to go back in right beside that loop, back again to the back of my pliers, clamp down on my wire, and I'm going to rotate until the tail goes towards the first loop that I made. And again, I'm going to open my pliers when I can't go any further and continue to rotate. And I'm going to bring the tail over the top of my first loop until I have a nice straight line right beside my first loop. So what I'm going to have is this. And take it over a little bit further so that that's nice and straight hanging down there. So this wire, second loop, went over the first loop. So they're side by side. The third one I'm going to make, I'm going to slide my pliers down the wire, my wire down the pliers again to the back. And this time I'm going to bring the tail around until I have a loop that's right beside or right next to the first loop that I made. And you'll know the first loop because you'll see the open tail. So this time, the last time I went over the first loop, this time I'm going under. Actually, it's easier for me to turn it this way, and then I can rotate it like that. Or you can do it this way and just bring the tail up. It just, whichever works better for you. Neither one is all wrong or all right. Okay, bring that to the back. Rotate my pliers, and I'm bringing it down to the back of my two loops, all the way around as far as I can go when it's comfortable. When it's not comfortable, I'm going to open my pliers up again and clamp down and bring the wire all the way back until it's like that. So now I have a 3-leaf clover. Cute, huh? Isn't that cute? That's straight. There we go. There. And now my last loop, it's easier for me to slide the pliers in this loop so that I have something to hold on to. And then I'm going to bring my tail back around. And on top again. So it's over, under, over, under. The first one loop you make, the second loop you go over, the third loop you go under, and the fourth loop you go over. So it's just an over, under motion. So I'm going to bring that tail around and over the other loops. And once I get to where it's comfortable to do so, I'm going to take that out and just continue inside the loop. Okay, bring that down until it's nice and straight along the same side as the. And now you can see that this one is a little bigger than the others. That's an easy fix. All I need to do is go in, and I can either pull this tail or I can just wrap it down until it's a little smaller. So I can see if I go here to the back, I have a little bit of space. And just wrap it down, or I can pull the tail, whichever works. And then make whatever adjustments I need to make so that everything's nicely lined up. There we go. And I'm going to clip off my tail. I want to clip it so that the end is right inside my circle. And just be careful not to clip anything except that one piece. Rip that off. And make any adjustments that I need to make. Push that down a little more. And then I'm going to take my pliers and just squish everything nice and neat. Push that end down. Let's get up here where you can see better. Push that end down so that it's not hopping up and waiting to stab you. I want it to go right inside my loop, just like the other one. Push that down inside my loop. There we go. Here's our clover. There we go. There's our 4-leaf clover. Ta-da! Now, we wrap this in this way for a reason. I'm just making a little bit more of adjustment. There we go. Each of my tails, my open tails, there's one on this side and one on that side. And the reason I wanted to make sure that the tails are across from each other is because when you put your chain on, you want to attach it to the ones that are not open because you want that extra strength. In case it gets pulled, you don't want this to pull apart. You want to leave that just the way it is, unmoved. So there we go. There's our clover. Pretty. Now it's time to make our attachments. So the first thing that we're going to make is our attachment with our wire to go to attach the chain to the clover. That's this guy right here. So what I'm going to do is take my little beads, and I don't know if you could see those very well. Oh, you can't really see them very well. I have anything I can put them on that contrasts. Here we go. Let me put them on my lovely hammer. Maybe you can see them better. There. If you get kits, you're going to get these cute little teardrop shaped crystals. And we're going to use that. Put this in the center to make our connectors. Isn't that neat? Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And that's very simple. All that takes is some 20 gauge wire. And when you get your kits, it's going to look like this. So I would just keep it all together so that you don't have to worry about how much to cut off. But there is an easy way to determine how much you need. And that is to take your beads, put them on the wire the way you want them to go. In this case, I'm putting the pointier end is going to back up against my bead, my rondelle bead, like that. Now, all I need to do is figure out how much I need to make the loop. You really only need about 1/2 inch. So I need 1/2 inch on each side of my beads, and that will tell me how much wire I need if I choose to cut it off to work with it. So I need 1/2 inch on each side. There we go. And that depends on how big you want your loop to be. Our loop doesn't have to be that large. So I've got 1/2 inch on each side. The beads are about 1/2 inch. And so that's going to be 1.5 inches. That's what I need to cut off to make my connector. So I'm going to go ahead and slide my beads on. I don't know why I took them off. Slide my beads on. We are not making a wrapped loop. We're making a simple loop. take my pliers, make my loop. It doesn't have to be that large. Okay, I put my wire in my pliers. I'm going about a third of the way down my pliers, and then I'm going to make my loop. And in order to do that, I want to make sure that there's nothing sticking out of the back of my pliers. I want it to be nicely ensconced in between the teeth. And then I rotate until I have a nice loop. So there's my loop. Make sure it's closed. Then I'm going to put the tip of my pliers in, and I'm going to twist back just enough to bring that loop to the center of my wire. Then I'm going to slide my beads back down. There's one half of my connector. And now I can cut my wire. I need about 1/2 inch. Cut it off. See, that would have popped if I hadn't been holding it. You want to hold that and your beads so that they don't go anywhere. Again, I'm going to slide my wire onto my pliers about a third of the way down. I want both of my loops to be going the same direction. So this is flat, and this should be going side to side, just like that. Again, make sure that nothing's sticking out the back here. It's nice and flush. And make my loop. Just twist until I can't go any further and open my pliers, rotate back, and keep doing that until I have a nice closed loop. And then I'm going to put the tip of my pliers in and twist back until my loop is nicely settled on top of my beads. I'm going to check because I think this loop might be a tiny bit smaller than my other loop. And this will be a good moment. As a matter of fact, I know it is. Closed all the way. There we go. Now I can tell that this loop is a smidgen bigger than the other loop. Just a tiny bit, teeny tiny bit. So what I'm going to do is go into the loop that's bigger, and I'm going to snip off the end just a little bit of the end. And then I'm going to close that up, and that's going to make my loop smaller. And so now I have 2 perfectly matched loops. There we go. Now I need to do one more. Same thing. And I'm going to show you another way to do it. Instead of putting my beads on and then making my loop, I'm going to make my loop. Oh, and you can also, just to see if you're making your loops the same size, you can, if you've already made a loop, you can slide your pliers on and get an idea of where the the wire should go for the next loop that you make so that they'll be the same size. Okay, again, I'm going to rotate until my loop is closed. There we go. Put my pliers in just at the tip, twist back. See how it's kind of leaning over to the side like a P? Put the tip of my pliers in and twist back. And now it's resting on top of my wire. When you do that, there's a very good possibility that the loop will open up. So just go back in and close it. So now I have a nice loop that's centered on top of my wire. Neat, huh? And now I can put my beads on in whatever order you want them to be. Yeah, here's the opening. And last but not least, so I just did it a different way. I just did the loop first and then put the beads on. Same difference. And now I'm going to cut down to where I want it, which in this case is about 1/2 inch. And I'm just eyeballing it, holding my beads, holding my wire so that nothing goes flying across the room. Snip it off. And let's make that second loop. This time, I'm trying to show you different ways you can do things. This time, instead of making my loop and then bending it back, I'm going to bend it back first and then make my loop. And just roll it until my loop is closed. And make whatever adjustments you need to do to make once you've finished. There we go. Now, I'll show you something else. Notice how this loop is flat, but this one's a little off to the side. See that? They're not going the same direction. Easy to fix. Just take my pliers. I can take one set of pliers and another set of pliers. If you're going to use your round ones, go all the way near the back because you don't want to put any dents in your wire. And just twist it until they're both going the same direction. See that? A little bit more, or you can use your fingers. A little bit more. Close that loop. And there we go. Nice. So now I have my 2 links. And it's time to introduce my chain. Now I have about 6 inches of chain here. I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to need that much, but I can cut it off. This is where some measuring comes in because you need to know how much chain you're going to need in order for this to fit your wrist. So what I'm going to do is attach these pieces and see how much my center is measuring out. So remember I said you want to attach it on the loops that aren't open. This is an open loop. This is an open loop. So I'm going to attach it on the 2 loops that are closed. So I'm going to open up my loop And the correct way to do that is the same way you open up a jump ring. You just want to take your pliers and put them on the side, right beside the opening, and just twist back. And slide your embellishment, your connector onto your clover leaf and close it. And you want to go to the other side. Wait, oh, look what I did. I put it on the side with the open end. That's not where I want you to go. So open that up again, take that off and put it on the one that I want. And that is the one with a closed ring. And close it. Let's go to the other one. Again, we're going to open it. Just twist it up. And slide it on my centerpiece and close. Okay, so there's the beginning. That's the center of our bracelet right there. Neat, huh? Very pretty. So now I need to measure. My wrist is 7.5 inches, and I know that these are going to take up some space. These embellishments are right here are going to take up some space as well. So what I would suggest is to just take your chain, cut it in half, and put it on, and then that will tell you how much you need to cut off once you've made your clasp, because we're going to make that next. We're just going to go ahead and attach this to our centerpiece, and before we do anything else, we'll make our clasp, measure those pieces, and then decide how much of our chain we need to cut. Let's just go ahead and do that first. Let's put the chain to the side and let's make our next piece. Now, I didn't know whether I wanted my clasp to have these really light green beads in there. I made this one all green instead of burying it, but I didn't know if I should make my clasp light green with light green beads or with some crystal beads. What do you think? You can't tell me. I'm going to go with crystal, the crystal clear ones. So what I'm going to do is take my wire, and again, it's going to be just a very simple loop. Take my pliers. I'm going to go back about halfway because I don't need a huge loop, just enough to fit on my chain and to fit on my connectors. I'm going to go a little less than halfway back down my wire. And I'm going to make a loop, just like we've been doing all along. Just rotate until I have a closed loop, just like that. Put my pliers in, twist back until my loop is centered on top of my wire, like so. I'm going to put my bead on. Cut it down to about 1/2 inch on the other side. Actually, give myself a little more than 1/2 inch because this loop is a little bit bigger. If I need to cut it down, I will. Lift that off. Now this loop needs to go, these need to be opposite each other. So one of them has to go side to side and the other one needs to go up and down. So this one's going that way, and this one's going to go, oh, oops, this one's going that way. Get over here where you can actually see. This loop is going this way, it's flat. And this loop is going to be going up and down. So again, I'm going to go about a little less than halfway down my pliers, clamp my wire, nothing sticking out the back, and make my loop. Just rotate until it closes and go back in with the tip, pull back the loop, and then close it back up until it's nicely centered over the top of my bead. There we have it. So this loop is going this way, and this loop is going that way. Let's put that to the side and do the next one. Same thing. And again, if you want to, you can bend it back and then make your loop. Let's do that. Bend it back, make my loop. A little less than halfway down my pliers, nothing sticking out the back. And rotate until I have a closed loop. Now, this is a little too far over. See that? Let's make a correction. Let's rotate that until it's a little bit extended past. See, the tip is over there now. And I can go in and clip that off. And adjust it. Just close up my loop. Until that tail is backed up right against, that end is backed up right against the long edge of my wire. And then adjust it so that it's on top of my wire like so. There. Put my bead on. Clip it down to about a little more than ½ an inch. Bend my wire back and make my loop. So if you start making your loop, well, it's straight out on top, it's coming straight out from your bead, the loop will end up on the side. But if you bend it back to the side, the loop will end up on the top. And there we go. This one's going this way. That one's going the other way. Nice. Okay. So now we have that connector. And you're probably wondering what that has to do with anything. Well, I'm going to tell you, it has absolutely nothing to do with anything, because you know what? This second one was supposed to be a hook. This one is the connector for my hook. The mistakes you make on camera are just hilarious. Okay, so this is going to actually be the connector for my hook. Let's make our hook. I think I have all this wire left. So what I'm going to do is take my pliers. You're going to ignore this one because it obviously, one of them I don't need. So I need my bead though. Let's take that off of there. So I'm going to make the hook. That is the other part of my clasp. So what I want to do is make a teeny, 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 tiny little loop. And that's going to require that I go right there to the very tip of my pliers with the tip of my wire. And it's going to be a little tiny bit of a challenge, but you can do it. What you can do is slide it back a little bit where you have a little more leverage and just give it a little tiny bend, just a tiny bend, enough so that you have something to grab onto, and then make your tiny loop. As small as you can make it with the very tip. And I'm only going to go 3/4 of the way around. Just about 3/4 closed. Then I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to squeeze the bottom of this towards the head. And the bottom is the part where the opening is. I'm just going to squeeze it until I can squeeze it down to a little tiny nub. And you have to be careful when you're doing that because you don't want it to twist out of your grasp. So now I have the teeniest, tiniest little nub that I can make. Let me get this camera to be a little less fuzzy. See how small that is? That's smaller than the tiniest end of my pliers, which is why I do it that way. Nice and tight. Now I'm going to make my shepherd's hook. So what I call the bottom of my loop is the part where the loop is extended. So that's the side where the opening is, that's the bottom, and the top is the smooth part of the wire. So I'm going to slide my pliers into my wire, or my wire all the way down my pliers to the back, as close to the back as I can get, right there to the hilt. There's the bottom of my loop that's hanging over, and I'm going to rotate my pliers away from the bottom. So rotate my pliers all the way around until the long edge touches the loop. There's my shepherd's hook. Cute, huh? And I always like to push it a little bit beyond the long tail of wire, just so it's nice and closed. And this wire is very malleable, so you can do it with your hands or with your pliers. And so that when it springs back, it's resting right against that long tail. That way, when you fasten it, it won't slide back out. And then I like to give it a little bit of a curve back, just so that it looks a little more graceful, like that. And now I'm going to make my loop for the other side. Doesn't need to be very big. I'm going to go down about a little more than ½ an inch again, and you can measure it if you want. If you want to eyeball it, you can, but it needs to be about, you want to cut off about ½ an inch, maybe a little more than ½ an inch, just under your loop. So from the loop to where you cut should be about ½ an inch. Snip that off. and make your loop. And I'm going to make my loop. I'm going to rotate back towards the smooth part of my loop. Doesn't have to be too big. Again, I'm going to go a little less than halfway down my pliers. Make sure nothing's sticking out the back here. And I'm going to make my loop, and it's going to end up right here behind my shepherd's hook. Let's rotate until I have a closed loop. And there we have it. It's my hook. And now we have all of our components. And now, in order to determine how much of my chain I need to measure all of my components. So there's my wire. Some tight. I'm going to measure that. And that usually turns out to be an inch or maybe a little more. So yes, just about an inch. And my centerpiece is going to come in and extend that to a little over 3 inches. And it's hooked together. There we go. So that's about 3 1/8 inches. My wrist is 7 1/2 inches. So what I'm going to do is cut my chain in half. Sometimes I think the best way to do it is trial and error, because you don't want to make it too small or you have to start all over. If you make it too big, you can just cut it down. So I'm going to cut my chain in half. And again, I would suggest putting your hand over your pieces. Otherwise, this little ring is going to break apart and fly everywhere. See? Neat. Right down there in my hand, so I don't have to chase it across the room. So now let's do some connecting. 1/2 of my chain gets connected to one of my connectors. Just connect it to the very last loop of your chain. Close it up and go to the other side and open. Again, we're opening it to this, we're flipping it up. Slide your chain on, very last loop, and close. Okay. Now let's see what I have. I have about 8 inches. That's a little big. So what I want to do is cut it down to just over, this is about 1 inch. My wrist is 7 1/2 inches, and it needs a little wiggle room in there. So I want to give it, there should be a little bit of movement in your bracelet. So what I want to do is make the chain part of it the size of my wrist, or a little bit less than the size of my wrist, and then give myself this as the additional inch. So I'm going to say 7 1/4 inches for me. And then when I put my clasp on, that'll take it up to 8 1/4, and it'll give me a little bit of wiggle. I don't like mine very big. I don't like them draped all the way down over my hand. If you do, then just make your chain a little longer. So I'm going to give myself 7 1/4 inches altogether. The center and the side embellishment come to about 2 inches. So let me do some math here. That's 2, that's going to be 3. 6, 7 1/2. So that means 3 1/2 inches, 3 3/4 inches is all I need. So I'm going to cut this down too. So each side of this needs to be 1 1/2, 1 5/8. I'm going to cut it down to, yeah, about 1 3/4. And then if I need to make it smaller, I will. So I'm going to give myself 1 3/4 on each side. Clip that off. You can use that for earrings. Same thing on the other side. 1 3/4. Clip that off. Okay. Now let's see what I have. Yes. Okay. And time to make my attachment. Again, I'm going to open up my hook, slide it on the last loop of my bracelet of my chain, and close it. Go to the other side, open up my loop, slide it onto the last link of my chain, and close. Oops. And there is my bracelet. You know what I forgot to do? I knew I was forgetting something. I wanted to embellish my hook too, and I didn't. Ah, Virginia, you're getting lots of lessons today. So let's just remedy that little situation. Thank goodness nothing's wrapped, so I can just take it off. All right, let's go back to my length of wire. You get another chance to see how to make this hook. I'm going to make my tiny little loop, grab the end with my pliers, the very tip, and rotate 3/4 of the way around. Just 3/4 of the way. Once you get 3/4, take your pliers and squeeze the end toward the top. Until it's a nice little nub, nice little closed nub. Here we go. And I'm going to take my pliers, round nose, slide my wire back to the very back, just before I get to the hilt. And I'm going to rotate my pliers away from the bottom, which is the part that's hanging over. Just rotate all the way around until that loop touches that tail of my wire. There we go. There's my shepherd's hook. And now I'm going to put my bead on. But first I'm going to bend my wire so that it will accommodate my bead and the bead won't slide up into the loop. So I just bent my wire back. Let's put a little bend in it. Slide my bead on. Like so. Clip off my wire about down to just a little more than ½ an inch, just like we did before. And I would give myself, if you're working just from a length of wire that's not very long, give yourself about 3 inches. It won't take that much, but this way, you know you have plenty. I'm going to go down about a little less than half of the way down my pliers. Again, I'm going to rotate to make my loop until it's going back up here towards the head of my hook. Rotate, clamp, rotate, clamp, and rotate until it's closed. And then I'm going to take the tip of my pliers and bring that loop back until it's right under my bead. So now I have a beaded hook. Yeah. Make sure that's nice and closed. And let's attach. So now I have a beaded hook and a beaded loop. Everything's beaded. So open that up. Attach it to the last link in my chain. And close. And make sure it's nice and flush together, no gaps. And there's my bracelet. Neat, huh? Cute. Put it on here. Might be able to see it a little better. There it is. There's my bracelet. And what you can do when you have a long centerpiece like this, what I'd suggest is you decide which side you want to wear it on and then shape it. Just kind of bend the wires a little bit so that they conform a little bit better with your wrist instead of sticking straight out. Like that. Just kind of shape it a little bit. That is our piece. See both of them. Neat, huh? They're so cute. So easy to make. What could be simpler? And we've got St. Patty's Day covered. Yay. That's it. That's our piece for today, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, thought I'd give you a close-up of my bracelet. Here it is. There it is. And then there's the underside with the nice decorative clasp. And here's the other one. You can see that one too. Here they are. So easy to make. Really delicate. Oh, I like this. I have the topaz with the green contrast on this one, the green with the topaz cut contrast on this one. Actually, it's a little deeper color, kind of rose gold almost. Isn't that pretty? Oh, I like them. That's it. That's our piece for the day. I hope you liked it. I know I did. So I hope you will let us know what you think. I don't have it. I don't have this one strapped down, but I hope you'll let us know what you think, and I hope you'll make this because it's really easy and anybody can do it. I stayed away from a lot of wrapped loops just so that I could make sure that this was accessible for anybody to make, no matter what level you're at. If you're a little more advanced, you can wrap your loops, but you really don't need to on this one. It's just a matter of getting your beads, making your loops, putting all the components together, and you'll have a beautiful bracelet. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll have a good week and with a good rest of your week and a good weekend. And until next time, we'll see you later.